Let's get right into it. Canada is facing the worst export collapse in modern history. And what are the people in charge doing? Blaming Trump, blaming everyone else, and pretending their globalist photo ops are actually delivering results. But Canadians are not stupid. They see the factories closing on, the jobs disappearing, and their government bowing down to Europe while ignoring their own workers. So let's break this down. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre gets attacked by the Liberals for being all talk. No action? That's what Mark Carney and his allies keep saying. But think about it. For years, these same Liberals promised investment, promised military upgrades, promised that Canada would stand tall internationally. Did they deliver? No. They jet off to Berlin for handshakes and empty statements, while Canada bleeds billions. Here are the facts. Never once did we hear Carney or his Liberal friends make defense spending a real priority. They never hit the NATO benchmark of 5%. They never gave Canadian soldiers the pay raise they need to recruit and retain talent. They never expanded procurement to build more in Canada itself. Instead, they lecture Canadians about partnerships while outsourcing security and trade policy to Brussels and Berlin. And while all this theater is going on, $19 billion vanished from Canada's export numbers in a single quarter. Let that sink in. This isn't just a dip. This is a hemorrhage. Imports, they're steady. Canadians are still buying from the rest of the world, but other nations aren't buying from Canada. That imbalance means factories close, workers are laid off, families get squeezed. And what's Ottawa's response? Shrug. They act like it's just bad luck. Wrong. This is not bad luck. This is the direct consequence of failed Liberal economic policy, of strangling Canada's energy sector, of treating climate virtue signaling as more important than national prosperity. Mark Carney wants to look like a global statesman, but at home, he's crushing families with new taxes. They call it the Clean Fuel Standard. Don't be fooled. It's another carbon tax, repackaged with a shiny name, but the same brutal effect. 17 cents more per liter of gas for a family already paying record prices for groceries, already wondering if they can afford a hospital trip or a kid's birthday party. That tax is the last straw, and Carney shrugs it off as saving the environment. But has global carbon output changed because of these Canadian taxes? Not one bit. Zero. None. So what is it really about? Control? Money? Political branding? Carney wants to look good in Europe. He wants applause at the UN. Meanwhile, Canadians are stuck paying more at the pump while corporations carve out their exemptions. That's right. If you're a big energy company with lobbyists, you get special carve-outs and subsidies. If you're a regular Canadian family, you foot the bill. It's all right there in the lobbying records. The hypocrisy is staggering. Liberals say conservatives only care about big business, but who is really handing out favors to CEOs while squeezing ordinary citizens? Exactly. And while this economic freefall unfolds, Ottawa keeps chasing photo ops. Carney and his foreign minister, Melanie Joly, fly to Europe to announce partnerships with Germany, with Poland, with whoever will smile for the camera. They brag about cooperation on critical minerals, on submarines, on hydrogen schemes that no serious buyer even wants. Germany literally begged Canada in 2022 for LNG to replace Russian gas. Begged. And what did Trudeau and Carney say? No business case. Really? Then why did the US ship 44 million tons of LNG to Europe in the same period? Why did Germany sign deals with Qatar and the Americans? Because there was a business case. The Americans took it. Canada lost it. It gets worse. Ottawa tried to push hydrogen exports instead, a fantasy technology that loses 80% of its energy in transport and only survives on taxpayer subsidies. No one wanted it. Not Germany, not Poland, not news. But Carney still pitched it because it looked good for the cameras. And when that failed, he pivoted back to minerals and climate branding and always optics. Never results. Meanwhile, Trump, love him or hate him, delivered for his workers. He fought for American energy, American factories, American jobs. He faced down foreign competitors, cut red tape, and signed deals that kept America first. He was blunt, aggressive, sometimes abrasive, but he got results. Canadians are looking at that and asking, why can't we have that? Why can't we have leaders who put our workers first, instead of chasing applause in Berlin? Ottawa's betrayal is clear. This is not Europe betraying Canada. This is Canadian leadership betraying Canadians. Europe begged for energy. Canada refused. Families begged for relief from inflation. Carney taxed them more. Workers begged for jobs. Factories closed. And still, Ottawa says, we're building global partnerships. It's insulting. It's a slap in the face to every Canadian trying to pay bills while their leaders play dress up on the international stage. And the numbers tell the story. The entire trade deficit is being driven by non-US markets. The so-called diversification project, Carney's grand strategy, has been exposed as smoke and mirrors. Canada's only real surplus is with the United States. America is the lifeboat keeping this economy afloat. Without it, Canada is underwater. Yet Carney demonizes Trump, picks fights with Washington, and insists Europe and Asia will save Canada. That fantasy just cost Canadians $19 billion in one quarter. Here's the truth. Imports keep rising, exports keep shrinking, and Canadian families are paying the price of. Carney promised that Canada could be its own best customer, that his global connections would open new markets, that tariffs would come down and prosperity would flow. Instead, tariffs doubled, exports collapsed, and Canadians are living through the worst trade numbers in the nation's history. That isn't leadership. That's failure, and it's not just failure, it's betrayal at every step. Ottawa had the chance to stand up for Canadian workers, to unleash Canada's energy, to seize opportunities, to strike deals. Instead, they chose ideology. Weakness, excuses. They chose looking good at summits over protecting jobs at home. They chose to sell out Canadians for a seat at Europe's table. And that, my friends, is unforgivable. Let's not sugarcoat it. This entire so-called pivot to Europe is a disaster. Remember how Carney and Trudeau before him promised that diversifying away from the US would protect Canada's economy, that Europe and Asia would be the great new markets that would shield Canadians from American politics. Look at the results. Exports to non-US markets are weak, volatile, and shrinking. Imports from those same markets are flooding in stronger than ever. What does that mean? It means Canada is paying out while getting nothing back. It's like giving away your wallet while begging for crumbs at the table. And the irony here is brutal. The United States is the only real partner that has consistently bought Canadian goods, year after year. America remains the one market where Canada actually runs a surplus. Without that surplus, the economy collapses completely. But instead of recognizing that, instead of strengthening ties with Washington, Carney built his entire political identity around standing up to Trump. He promised Canadians that he could beat Trump at the negotiation table, that he could bring tariffs down, that he would unlock new markets through his global connections. And what happened? The opposite. Tariffs doubled. Exports collapsed. Canadians are paying higher prices than ever. This isn't just incompetence. This is arrogance. Carney thought he was smarter than Trump, thought he could outmaneuver him by cozying up to Europe, but Trump plays hardball. He's not afraid to rip up deals, to put America first, to call out leaders who don't deliver. And while Trump was cutting red tape, slashing deals, and boosting American workers, Carney was clinking glasses in Berlin, pitching hydrogen fantasies, and pretending Canada was some sort of climate superpower. Canadians don't need a climate superstar. They need a leader who fights for jobs, paychecks, and prosperity. Let's talk about this carbon tax scam again. Because it's not just about the money, it's about control. Carney repackages the tax as clean fuel standard, but families see through it. They know that every liter of gas, every grocery run, every truck shipment costs more because of it. And when Canadians push back, what does Ottawa do? They double down. They claim it's for the environment. But emissions haven't budged globally, not one fraction of a percent. So if the climate impact is zero, why does the tax still exist? Because it gives Ottawa more cash, more control, more ways to brand themselves as progressive heroes on the world stage. And the hypocrisy is sickening. Carney sits down with oil and gas executives behind closed doors, cuts carve-outs, offers subsidies, all while telling ordinary families to pay more at the pump. CEOs get protection. Families get the bill. Liberals accuse conservatives of being the party of big business. But look at the record. It's Carney and the Liberals who are bending over backward to appease corporations, all while gutting the middle class. Meanwhile, Melanie Joly is parading around Berlin talking about steel, aluminum, and autos. She tells Canadians she hears their anxieties. But what does she deliver? Nothing. Just more promises, more tweets, more staged smiles. Canadians don't want photo ops. They want results. They want exports to rise, jobs to come back, inflation to go down. Instead, they get government ministers pretending that symbolic deals with Europe will fix everything. Let's rewind to 2022. Germany was desperate. They had just cut themselves off from Russian gas and were begging for alternatives. Canada had a golden opportunity to step in, supply LNG, and lock in decades of influence and profit. What did Ottawa do? They waved it off. No business case. Think about that. The Americans saw a business case. Qatar saw a business case. They jumped in, filled the gap, and raked in billions. Canada stood on the sidelines, scratching its head, and now, 2 years later, Ottawa is suddenly desperate to cut trade deals with Germany. Too little, too late. The ship has sailed, And Canada wasn't on it. It's the same story with Poland. Their ambassador openly said they want Canadian LNG. They're ready to buy, but Ottawa refuses to build pipelines, refuses to approve terminals, refuses to get serious about energy. Regulations strangle every project before it can even begin. And while Canada dithers, America keeps cashing in. Trump understood that energy is power. Whoever supplies it wins influence. Canada could have been a key player in that game, but under Carney, it became a spectator. So let's be absolutely clear. This collapse isn't Europe betraying Canada. It isn't America turning its back on us. This is Canada's leaders betraying their own people. They had the opportunities, they had the resources, they had the leverage, and they threw it all away. For what? For ideology, for branding, for the illusion of global leadership. And now, Canadians are paying the price. $19 billion gone in 1 quarter. Jobs lost. Families crushed under inflation. Workers abandoned while Ottawa preens in front of cameras overseas. This is betrayal on a scale that should outrage every single Canadian. And it's not just economic. It's political. It's cultural. It's about national pride. Because when your leaders sell you out abroad and lecture you at home, they're not just failing as policymakers. They're failing as Canadians. Meanwhile, Trump continues to deliver for his people. You don't have to like his style. You don't have to like his personality. But he puts America first. He fights for American workers. He makes sure his country benefits from global opportunities. That's what leadership looks like. And Canadians are left asking, why can't we have that? Why are we stuck with photo ops and empty promises while America surges ahead? Carney promised Canadians he would defend them against Trump. Instead, he failed on every single front. He told us tariffs would go down. They doubled. He told us exports would climb. They collapsed. He told us Canada could be its own best customer. Imports skyrocketed. Exports vanished. And families are footing the bill. This isn't bad luck. This is a failed agenda. And Canadians are the ones living with the consequences. Let's finish this with the blunt truth. Canada is being dragged down by weak leadership. And it is ordinary citizens who are paying the price. Carney built his entire career and political image on one claim, that he could stand up to Trump, that he could outsmart America, that he could open new doors for Canada and Europe. But what has happened? Tariffs are higher, exports are collapsing, families are poorer, and Canada is weaker than ever. That's not standing up for Canadians, that's selling them out. And it's not just about trade numbers or carbon taxes, it's about trust. Carney told Canadians he was their champion. He said his global connections and his reputation would protect them. Instead, what did he do? He chased applause at the UN, chased headlines in Berlin, and chased photo ops in Brussels while ignoring the very people who pay the bills back home. That isn't leadership. That is vanity dressed up as policy. Contrast that with Trump. Again, you don't have to like his tone, his personality, or his style, but the man delivers. He said America would come first, and it did. He said he would fight for American workers, and he did. He said he would make America energy dominant, and he did. He cut through bureaucracy, signed deals, and made sure Americans got ahead. That is what results look like. Canadians deserve no less. But what did Canadians get instead? Excuses, weakness, endless lectures about climate targets that change nothing while inflation crushes families, endless promises of diversification that never materialize, endless announcements about partnerships that lead nowhere. The result? Canada is falling behind. Workers are left jobless. Factories sit idle. Families are forced to choose between groceries and gas. And the government pretends it's all just bad luck. Let's not kid ourselves. Europe didn't betray Canada. Canada's own leaders did. Trudeau before, and Carney now. They let Germany's request for LNG slip through their fingers. They let Poland's demand for Canadian energy go unanswered. They let Asia's markets get scooped up by competitors. They let the US dominate while Canada clung to ideology. That is betrayal. That is failure. And the damage is real. $19 billion evaporated in just 1 quarter. That's not numbers on a spreadsheet. That's jobs. Families, communities. That's a generation of Canadians wondering why their leaders chose Berlin photo ops over their future. That's why this moment is so dangerous. Because when citizens lose faith that their government is even trying to fight for them, they stop believing in the system itself. Canada needs leadership that is willing to fight. Leadership that will unleash its energy sector instead of strangling it with taxes and regulations. Leadership that will seize opportunities when they come instead of waving them away with smug excuses. Leadership that will put workers first, families first, Canada first. That's what Trump has shown in America. That's what Danielle Smith is trying to show in Alberta. That's what Canadians are begging for at the national level. But what are we stuck with? A prime minister who looks more like a Canadian version of Gavin Newsom, slick on camera, great at speeches, hopeless at actually delivering results. Carney is a master of style, but he has no substance. Canadians don't need another globalist poster boy. They need a fighter, someone who doesn't cave under pressure, someone who doesn't sell out his own people to score points in Europe. Right now, Canada is at a crossroads. Either we keep stumbling down this path of weakness, excuse, and betrayal, or we demand leaders who are willing to fight for Canadians the way Trump fought for Americans. Because the truth is this, the world doesn't wait, opportunities don't wait, energy markets don't wait. If Canada doesn't step up, others will take its place. And they already have. Look at the facts. America is surging ahead. Qatar is locking in long-term energy deals. Europe is moving on, turning elsewhere for resources. And Canada is left behind, clinging to fantasies and pretending it's a climate champion while its people struggle to afford basic necessities. That's not leadership. That's national decline. And let's be very clear. Canadians deserve better. They deserve a government that protects their jobs, their paychecks, their future. They deserve leaders who don't fold under pressure, who don't chase applause overseas, who don't betray their own citizens for ideology. They deserve strength. They deserve results. They deserve a Canada that is proud, independent, and prosperous. Mark Carney had his chance. He promised results. He delivered excuses. He promised strength. He delivered weakness. He promised prosperity. He delivered collapse. That's the record. That's the truth. And Canadians see it. So here's the final word. Don't let them tell you this was bad luck. Don't let them tell you this was unavoidable. This was a choice to betray Canadian workers, a choice to abandon Canadian families, a choice to sell out Canada for a seat at Europe's table. And Canadians are the ones paying the price. That's all for today from Zone Media. If you want leaders who actually fight for you, not against you, stay tuned. Like, subscribe, comment down below, let us know your thoughts. Because this fight is far from over, and Canada's future depends on whether we stand up now.